Well, welcome back, everyone, to the Deadlock Fight Night number 23, presented by Intel. Your man Jordan out there is watching, and he is happy to see the number 23 plastered all over the show today because we have quite a show for you all at home. I'm your host. Well, not your host. I'm a hostcaster. I'm the man extraordinaire, the people's dick, whatever you want to call it. I'm Jason Kaplan, joined by Dan, the DDK man. How you doing today? We got a new patch coming through as well. We got a lot of exciting matches as well to come up today.
So excited, Jason, as always. You never know what to expect on this show. This show is full of shenanigans, terrible jokes, in references, and some deadlock. So you know, it's always good. It's always a lot of fun.
Just a little bit of deadlock sprinkled in on top. I would agree with that one. But for you guys who might be joining the fight night here for the first time, just to quickly explain how the whole show goes for you. Well, the format, it's more of a show match. We have an initial challenger match that kicks off between two teams, hand selected from the community by our very own I wanted to say ZP, and we'll say ZP. I wanted to kind of call out like a very skilled level of judges to determine who gets invited in. But for EU, it's pretty much been the same for the last 3 to 4 weeks here, where Virtus.pro and Parivision will go head-to-head for their chance to take on OneWin in our money match for $1,000 in prizes for the winning team. And over in NA, we also do have a slight mix-up to what we did put out for you guys just yesterday. We do have Revengers come into this, but Hydra Nation, they're more like crayon eaters here this time. One head of the Hydra eating a couple of crayons. It's a little bit of a switch up, and we'll get to the roster in a little bit of time, but they'll be taking on Melee Creeps, our newly crowned champion from last week here, Dan.
Yes. Yeah, it's been really interesting to see how the NA scene has developed. Crazy that Hydra Nation obviously unable to maintain their grip on the belt. We're going with a belt now as opposed to like a crown and a trophy, but going with a belt makes sense. Fight night, obviously. So yeah, that's a really interesting development. Melee Creeps are probably feeling amazing. I'm super curious to see if they can continue that momentum. Obviously, it's going to be interesting because, as you say, got a little interesting situation with Hydra Nation this week, which we'll get into more deeply on the NA portion, I'm sure.
Well, I will say this, though. I know AVG's been hitting me up my DM saying EU's trash. He could beat them by himself. Because you guys haven't noticed, over in the One Minute Bombshell Volume 5, which has been happening the last few days, covered by myself and ZP, as well as Metro and Seymour over in the English broadcast that they do have at this time. We've seen the crew of, well, a portion of Hydra Nation, a portion of Melee Creeps, and a portion of Unknown, all mixed together, have been able to take down, I believe, OneWin in a best of 2 so far here in the first map. But that is really interesting to see, and we'll see if they can maintain that sort of momentum as they go into their matches later on. Before we can even get into those matches, we got to bring in our third head to our Hydra, the man who's been casting One Minute Bombshell with me. We got ZP coming in, who's looking refreshed, ready to go, looking like he slept a nice, lovely 12 hours.
Yeah, 12 hours. Try at least maybe 2.5 tops. But hey, I knew what I was getting into when I took on the schedule. And look, on the upside, gotten to enjoy a whole lot of Deadlock so far this week. And this is just continuing the trend. And the interesting thing as we come in here is, ADU, there's kind of the question of, well, is Parivision still going to be the number 3 team? Aegis Aurora was looking pretty good at the start of OneWin Bombshell. And then we got our answer here today, where Parivision was still able to pretty soundly get one over Aegis Aurora, maybe aided a little bit by the game tape, where they had the idea of like, well, Warden is viable again. Maybe we just ban the Warden away from Aegis Aurora and things will work out. And it kind of did go according to script.
I mean, the thing I'm really... Oh, sorry, Jason. The thing I'm wondering is, are you guys creatine maxing? Because obviously, with that sleep deprivation, we all understand the benefits that ample creatine will provide your brain.
I'm merch maximizing, as you saw there with my sweet Ivy mug. No, not creatine. I think it's just all about Deadlock and our love for the game. Because not only after the show finishes off, which funny enough, it's been great to actually have ZP have to work late into the night or early into the morning. We do have like 3-4 hours sleep before we go back into OneWin Bombshell for a third day in a row. We're going to be casting 3 more matches. But, you know, before we fully get into today, one thing we should bring up is, you guys heard ZP say out there, wait, Warden, viable? What's that about if you missed out on the OneWin show? The patch, which we're going to get a couple of our notes, has facilitated the potential rise of Warden once again, with the big factor already being that E-Shift has had a massive change, going from a tier 3 item over to tier 4, making it a lot more expensive and less seldomly seen.
Yeah, and I think one thing that really goes into this too is the fact that there have been economy changes to the game, and you know, that's kind of the latter half. But it's not just the 8 minutes. There was also tweaks made in general to how people get economy, to comeback mechanics overall. And we've kind of seen this meta evolve where teams right now, there's this kind of ebb and flow where if you can fight fights with lesser people and then like shift off a Warden or Yamato to take farm from the jungle, that, you know, just chill out in a lane and push it on your own, you can reap really significant benefits that will last the entire game long. So when you start getting those situations, you've seen an uptick in value for heroes like Yamato, who now usually does not make it to the second round of bans from what we've been seeing in the One Will Bombshell tournament, and Warden back into the play for quite a few teams at this point.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I wonder sometimes how much the devs are tuning into our show, because I don't know how we've been talking about eShift perhaps needing an adjustment for a while now. So it's really interesting to see that change and just a general approach to the balancing that maybe slows the game down and also maybe gives more options into jungling. Because I feel like the pace of the game was pretty quick, and we talked a lot about how the kind of more natural junglers didn't really have maybe as much of an ability to get involved with that playstyle, because then you're just not on the map, and so it created a situation where if you're going to jungle, you do it in your opponent's base, basically.
Another big change here we did see a lot of ZP when it came to Woman Bombshell was that the first urn is now considered for comeback mechanics, which we've seen happen in quite a few games. So if one team is dominating so early on, that means they could have to go for an urn 10 on the other side. But then again, that same note, if you're the team that's behind, you have a fairly easy turn in if you can win that fight around the actual urn pickup. And then maybe even therefore onto our next big change, ZP, the Soul Orbs. A lot of an economy change when it comes to how lanes can be played out, because it's no longer splitting like it was before the 8-minute mark. It's pretty much acting as if it was after the 8-minute mark the entire time.
Yeah, I mean, the economy changes, they've been quite significant, but also just as significant, and I think this is the other half of our slide that we have here, is the fact that in terms of hero changes, I mean, this is just a small fraction of what went on, but a lot of heroes got tuned to the early game, where the general theme of the patch was if you had strong early game power, you are getting toned down a bit. But Pocket is perhaps the #1 victim of the patch in terms of changes, where not only did Pocket get hit by the E-Shift nerf, where it was a very core item on Pocket that every Pocket got, and oftentimes you would get it earlier in Pocket than you would on other heroes. These changes here to Pocket's bullet damage in lane and the Enchanter Satchel actually have had huge ramifications on Pocket's viability, where, you know, day one of One Win Bombshell, we saw a little bit of Pocket, but when we saw Pocket, he basically always lost. And then day two, he's just gone, for the most part, not getting banned and not getting picked. So Pocket went from a highly contested top pick last patch into today. I'd be surprised if you see him, especially in the U.
And one thing I want to quickly add about the Pocket thing here is that I personally feel that if you're going to nerf the bullet damage that much, that maybe you shouldn't have changed the growth as well, because now you're making it so that he has less damage and has to get a lot closer to do the damage. So it just feels like it's just like two pretty big nerfs all at once. So I'm kind of curious if those will stick. We'll have to see.
Also, for the Vindicta change, we have seen like the Shredder Vindicta build, right? Where you go straight into Crow, you max it as soon as possible. You don't worry about your Assassinate to have that extra damage when it comes to these fights, to help your teammates have the extra damage on top of that. But we have seen over the last couple of matches we looked at when we were casting One Man Bombshell that some Vindictas starting to max their Assassinate first instead. They kind of compensate for that. But we've also seen Vindicta not necessarily be such a high priority pick, though it's still a very solid pick that we see almost every single game, whether it's picked or banned. But I think when it comes to bans, though, ZP, Grey Talon has been the one that's been constantly swatted away at every single time in all these matches these last 2 days.
Oh yeah, I mean, the reason why they call him Grey Talon is that when the bans come in and the hero portrait turns gray, well, you better believe Grey Talon is going to be there on top. It's kind of been the theme where Grey Talon kind of universally seen as the #1 pick in EU, and right there as #2 is Holiday, where every now and then you'll get Grey Talon through and the Holiday banned instead, but overall, Grey Talon #1 ban, and as a result, in return, the first pick has been Holiday at a very high rate. Like, I would say on this patch, from the games we've seen so far, Holiday is by far the most common first pick. And the reason is that even with nerfs to her early game, her power to dictate the flow of the game in the early to mid game and get a team on top once you hit 3K, it is nearly just uncontested. It's quite strong.
It is quite ridiculous. And Dan, as we do start to head into our first match, Virtus.pro up against Parivision, one thing we were also quite heavily treated to was not only seeing Listic on Yamato over the course of today, but also D-Mob bringing back his Bebop once again, putting on some serious work with him and Listic paired together. One of the matches, Listic went, I think, like 11-0 at some point and was just had the full rainbow, if I'm not mistaken, when it came to the end game stats. But looking at, the VP lineup, is there any player that kind of stands out to you, whether it's good or bad?
So hard with VP because it's VP. Everyone is awesome on this roster. Everyone fits really well with regards to the hero pool and the versatility. Obviously, Mikhail S is often a big highlight for people. The Paradox play is often phenomenal, and often Mikhail S can get targeted in some of these bans. With Sharik, I think what will be interesting is if we do get some of that Warden play coming online. That would be really cool and just fun to see Warden back in the mix. So I personally would love to see that. And I think, again, just obviously the spoilers from the screen, Listics on the Calico has been really, really great. Calico did get a little bit of an early game nerf. It's kind of like you said, ZP, all of the early game strength across the board was kind of nerfed for pretty much all of the common contenders there for the top early game spots in terms of strength. But I would still assume that you'd go for the Calico. There's some ways to mitigate that. Like I think one of the more nasty ones was like the base ammo getting reduced. But otherwise, I think the early game strength is still pretty strong there from Calico.
Yeah, I would say the big difference that we've seen overall is that Calico has gone way lower in draft priority, and the hero that's really gained quite heavily in draft priority. And again, maybe a part of it is like E-Shift getting nerfed, so the fact is that you can't really stall out her ultimate the same way you could before, is that Yamato has been super, super highly valued. So for VP in particular, I wouldn't expect to see Listic on Calico today. When they've played Calico, they've put Sharik onto it, and instead, they've been highly valuing getting Listic onto the Yamato. And even for Zergy, it's kind of funny, look at that. Zergy, you're probably more likely to see a Gun Ivy out of Zergy than you are to see a Wraith today.
Yeah, I know a lot of you out there maybe weren't able to see the matches earlier on with the one-win Bombshell Volume 5, but Zergy has probably had the most difficult time adapting to these latest patches because the heroes he played for the most, your Seven, Infernus, and Wraith, well, two of them have been kind of put into the subpar category, I would say. And then Seven even potentially fallen off just a little bit because of the E-Shift changes on top of this. We've seen Zerg in the likes of, as you said, Gun Ivy ZP. We've seen him on Geist again. We've seen him on Mirage as well over the course of today. He's had to adapt, and I feel like he's still struggling to do so at the moment. But the thing is, you still have some insanely talented players around him, insanely talented cast to keep him going. As we move on to the Parivision roster, and I would love to see a Bebop battle between these two teams. Let's forget the or the Krill 1v1s. Let's put a Bebop 1v1 between TAS and D-Mob, because TAS last week had some phenomenal action, stalling out the game versus Virtus.pro, where VP were well in the lead.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting how powerful Bebop is, and the fact that both Parivision and VP really like to run it. I mean, D-Mov was doing just the absolute dirtiest things imaginable on the Bebop over the last 2 days. The interesting thing, though, is that I don't know if Bebop is strong enough to value a super early pick, nor is it strong enough to value an early ban. It's kind of in this interesting spot where you love getting Bebop if you secure the top tier of power as far as the draft goes early on, and then you use Bebop to round things off and secure a good early game. I don't know if either team is going to super hard prio the Bebop earlier than the mid-stage ban. So for me, between these two teams, I think they both recognize how good the other team is at Bebop, and it's more likely to me that Bebop gets hit in the mid-game bans rather than getting played. But we'll see. I mean, it could be valued to be a little bit earlier on, but should you do that, you do give up what has been a pretty firmly defined power creep in the top three, where you're kind of looking to pick up heroes like Mirage, Yamato, all in one go.
One thing that's not necessarily about Parivision, but more about the opponents that I'm thinking is that just looking at this, the way that the meta might be affected by these changes, how the game pace will be slowed down a little bit, how the early game strength is being diminished a little bit. It really feels like VP get to play more from their strengths, because if we look at what was really good for them, it was playing more rounded comps, which weren't necessarily super strong in the early game, but they have really strong ability to play the mid to late game team fight and also macro. That was like some of their strengths. And when they came up against OneWin, a lot of the time, OneWin would be able to just beat them down by having super strong early games and being more indexed for that, and for the scaling that comes with that too. So it kind of feels like this should be VP's patch. It's kind of where I'm feeling this is going to go.
Well, at the moment, they are currently ranked number 1 in seed over in the one win bombshell tournament. At the moment, though, they could potentially lose out on this one, currently sitting without a single defeat. But as we move into our matchup here in our challenger match, we got to take a look at how we kick things off. We had coin flips in the past ZP. We said, screw the coin flips. So we want to feed the fans what they want to see. And every fan out there wants to see a little bit of fisticuff between Krills.
Yeah, and there was one time where this was all the Mo that you would get. But now Mo is a very highly valued pick in EU, will get played in just about every game. But hey, why not get a little bit of Mo versus Mo here and now, where the meta has really evolved in terms of trying the bait up parries. Show your back to your opponent, you know?
Just mooning him there, man. Pulling down the pants and you can't hit me. But then again, look at the health bars, Dan. It's looking like it's going to be going the way of VP here.
Dude, do not show your back. If you show your back, they're going to get that rear naked choke. It's going to be horrendous for you. Dude, I've experienced that. I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu lately, and it's not fun. It's not fun. Don't expose your back, guys. All right. Okay, well, it looks like together's he's nailed it.
There you go.
How much health is left? He's got 30% health left. That was easy.
Look at Krill. He's just left to himself. He got completely knocked off Mo, and he's just like wondering what the hell's going on. So that does mean Parivision get the chance if they want first ban or first pick, or I guess technically first ban or they get first double pick. I don't know, man. It's been a long day, and we still have a lot of Deadlock action to come up for you and me, ZP, in the next 24 hours of time. But we're headed into this right into, it looks like Parivision going for their first pick, so we'll be getting a first ban here. And again, as we were saying before, ZP, we're expecting Great Town. We're expecting Holiday probably to be the first 2 priority bans right off the bat.
Yeah, and it won't be Parivision. They'll ban the Great Town. They will grab it themselves. But in reality, what they're angling here, in all likelihood, is going to be the Holiday. So they get rid of the Sinclair, because Sinclair would likely come down in the double pick for VP. Now VP almost certainly going to be taking down the Great Talon. And as a result, Parivision is going to come in and grab the Holiday. That's kind of been the script. And the addition to the script is that the team that picks Holiday in the 2 and 3 picks usually will pick up a Mo and Krill. Like, we've seen the Holiday Mo and Krill combo constantly on this patch right now. It has been near universal in EU.
Has to wait.
That makes a lot of sense, because I don't see any nerfs for Mo coming through, especially the utility Mo already had for setup and lockdown, and just I think provided some of the easiest play for some of those ganks that you would see into the jungle, and just like locking down those lanes when the ult comes line. There's just so much value there, so it's not surprising to see the priority go up even more. So Parivision, you guys are leading it up to a Holiday expected initial pick. Okay, that's Holiday. There we go.
Yep.
little lag
so for all of you out there who maybe haven't been watching, one thing we've noticed a lot, ZP, is that we've seen a lot of, like you said, like the Mo and Holiday kind of combo. But we've also seen any lane that really has Mo, ideally you're able to take down that Guardian ASAP to free up the Mo to start roaming around and ganking. We've seen some lanes have Holiday Mo together, and they push down a Guardian, and then they actually sent both players away from that position and gave the person that they wanted to get fed that lane to farm up. We've seen that happen a lot with like Bandwise over an Aegis Aurora on the Warden. They were able to take an early tower. They left him alone, and he had a consistent 5 to 10K lead over everyone in the game. I'm curious to see if we're going to see something similar happen at both these teams, prioritizing that very early Guardian to free up who you want to have carry, then also free up the ability for these rotations for these ganks, because we still don't really see any of these early ganks happening anymore.
So this is something that's interesting that really just started happening today, was the Geist inflation. Geist is rising up because you had a few teams decide, hey, we're going to take it early. And the response universally was, whoa, we don't like you taking the Geist early, when we were counting on getting the Geist. I was talking with Lightbringer a little bit about that. So VP, this is kind of a very recent change being made. Also on the other end, what it does mean is that, for Parivision, Mirage is coming in, and likely a Mo, or we'll see. But Mirage Mo has been something that, when you look at overall power picks, it kind of go for here. And Parivision today was also still highly prioritizing the Mo's. So I would expect Mo to come on in here, and we'll see what VP goes on the turn. Probably Yamato. Third pick Yamato has been super common.
I think we see Yamato here even. Because with the Mo, you're getting more lockdown. You got Holiday already for the lockdown, so you're going to go double lockdown. At least you deny from the other team, but now you've given up the potential for those picks you guys are mentioning, inclusive of the Yamato. And I feel like that would have been kind of a nice opener for Parivision. But I guess you get early game strength with Mo and Krill anyway, so trade-offs.
I mean, the Mo, Krill, Holiday, we got to come up with some name for that, of like the 3 together in a lane, because it is If they lane together, it is such an overpowering lane. It is guaranteed kills time and time again. 3K, you get the combo, you get a lasso right after that, or lasso into the combo. You're gonna kill someone, and that can really give that snowball potential, especially if you're able to get these Guardians down early. But I do like the response out of VP. They sweep up the Yamato. Most likely, from what we've seen today, it will be going over to Listic. That also means Vindicta's left open, and I was expecting that to be also a potential pick early on for VP here. But considering how they played in the last weeks, Vindicta first pick every time, they've had to mix things up, and that's respectable.
Well, I was gonna say that was gonna be my guess. As it came to me, if it came to me before, I'd just be like, they're gonna ban Bebop here, and they do. In response, though, you stop and think about what might be getting played on the other end. You know, I think Parivision has some obvious bans of their own. And, you know, it just flooded into my brain and flooded out. I'm going to feel real stupid in like 2 seconds as they banned the thing that I was thinking of.
Kelvin.
And, okay, it's Kelvin actually not what I was thinking of in this case. But this is just the general fear of the Shiv Kelvin lane that people don't really want to give up late into a draft, if at all possible. Interestingly enough, though, when you think about Parivision, one thing they have been different on, Jason, is that a lot of teams haven't been valuing Abrams as much. VP, especially with Listic on the Yamato, they haven't really been too keen to go for it. Parivision probably will go the Abrams when the pick shifts back over to their side.
That's fair, actually. I think we did forget to mention in a little bit of Pat's Notes discussion, HMC has been changed around, so you're not going to see the extra distance that Abrams can get, which they do rely on quite heavily for like survivability. But if we do see the Abrams pick up for Parivision, ZP, I'm kind of excited to see how it's going to work out, because Dan, the last 2 weeks we have had some top level play out of Abrams, like AVG in particular over in Melee Creeps. The first time we see him really play it in DFN, and he just wipes the floor with hydronation. Wait, what? Okay.
Ooh.
Surprising.
We got some stank faces all around here. Looking at that pocket. Okay. Well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe there's a method to the madness on that one. I've completely lost the train of thought. I think that was like a system interrupt with that pocket pick there.
You were looking to summon God.
There's a lash. Oh, you're talking about the Abrams. Okay.
Oh God, please.
All right.
What's happening? What's happening here?
I think Parivision's about to not win the challenges match is what's going on here. I mean, look, I'm willing to be wrong, but this has been the kiss of death for the last few days. Is that you pick Lash when you just want to lose. Like the beginning of Lash, like the L actually stands for loss, and you will not change my mind. It has just not been effective at all. And also, I was gonna say ban wise, I'm surprised they banned the Kelvin rather than banning the Vindicta. Vindicta, I think, would have been the better ban for Parivision. That's what I was gonna say. It just like left my mind as we're going in here. But Calco coming on in. This is likely gonna be played by Sharik. VP
Abrams
not overly prioritizing the Warden, even though a lot of teams have been playing it. They prefer the Calico,
Ivy.
and I think it's just Sharik wants to be a little bit more active rather than farming.
I mean, I'm thinking like, who's Zergy to play? Oh, they actually do go Abrams? Okay, so who's Zergy gonna be on now?
I was gonna say it kind of makes sense because
I guess Geist.
I mean, VP love like some of these bigger frontline heavy comps. This is actually pretty heavy. Geist, Yamato, Calico, and Abrams. Let's get the Dynamo in, shall we? Shall we?
I don't know if we're gonna see that.
Let's just double down, guys. Let's get the Dynamo in.
Is this like the DFN special ZP? Because we've literally gone through how many games so far these last 2 days, and we've seen Lash constantly lose. Though Parivision did have one win today on it and one with Bombshell, but we've seen Abrams 0 times in the matches we've casted, and now we're seeing it come out. And Pocket, like what is happening?
I mean, it's just adaptations, right? We're still getting game data on the current patch. The teams in the EU have really been putting in a lot of scrim time in the last week because of one win Bombshell, even more so than the norm. And there's a lot to work through. So we are going to see a constantly evolving meta over the next week. Like today's DFN and next week's DFN in EU will likely be different a little bit in terms of pick priority, particularly on the middle of the back end. And already in the last 2 days, we've seen the change, right? Where Geist is being highly valued as a top 2 pick rather than something you get as like a 3 or 4 within your team compositions. But Abrams being picked here, I do wonder who's going to be playing what. My guess would probably be Dmov on the Abrams, based on what they have here. Zergy on Geist, MKLS on Paradox.
So I went different. I went with Listic on Abrams, Sharik on Calico, Dmov on Yamato, and then MKLS on Paradox, Obi Vindicta, and I think we agree with Zergy on Geist.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on familiarity. I just feel like you've been running so much Listic on the Yamato here. Do you really want to shift your Yamato player that heavily? I mean, yeah, you can. Like, they're both capable of playing it, but to me, it'd make more sense to change it up. But I don't know. I mean, as we've kind of talked about a lot today, VP, there's a lot of versatility in their hero pool, who can play what. There's many different combinations of permutations that they can make this work on.
Yeah, I'm more interested in Parivision.
Yeah.
I mean, it started so strong, guys. It started so good. Holiday Mirage, Mo and Krill. That is nice. But yeah, I'm curious how the Pocket and Lash will come into play. I do think the comp that VP is running, and it might be part of the reason why they chose Lash. I feel like Lash is going to be kind of nice. Like, you should be able to get pretty good death slams, presumably, because there'll be a lot more stacking of heroes with VP's heavy frontline. So in theory, death slam should be pretty valuable. There is, I mean, I'm looking at what shoots up. You got Geist, you got Vindicta, and Paradox all shoot up pretty well. So it feels like Lash is, and also he can get swapped. There's definitely a lot to deal with the Lash, but I don't know. I'm trying to find the cope, guys. I'm trying to find that source of copium that I can inhale here that's going to allow us all to believe in Parivision.
I'm hoping for a knockdown pickup out of Virtus.pro. We definitely had a match, was it today, where like not a single knockdown was picked up to deal with the 7. Yeah, it was CIS Rejects up against Lodos. They didn't pick up a single knockdown, and of course, the 7 just popped off and just did some serious work. I think what his name was Force, if I remember correctly. Was ridiculous, but knockdown going to be a very good counter to obviously Lash. But I do kind of wonder, they have like 3 major pick-off potential heroes for Parivision. So if they don't have a strong like mid game, this is where I'm going to start to worry for them. But yeah, that's what I'm going to say. They need to have a strong mid game if they want to have success later on here against VP.
We'll see how this one pans out. I think on paper, and by the way, Chad actually did mention that Lash did pick up a win today towards the end of one win where, look, I will excuse myself by saying I had to fit in some sleep somewhere. This has been a ridiculous schedule. I actually could not watch all of one win live and expect to function. But overall, Lash still had a pretty negative record so far.
Yeah,
so
it was Parivision who got the win, but it was against Atlas, and Atlas is like last place at the moment. So that you can take with a grain of salt. But yeah, you're 100% right. I think one game out of like maybe 5 or 6 he's won is still a pretty bad win record going into this.
Isn't it the case that like with sleep deprivation, you're actually inducing some level of brain damage? So really, ZP and Jason Kaplan are really showing their dedication for you guys here. That they are willing to induce brain damage to bring you this show for better or for worse.
You know what? I think I remember also hearing, Dan, that ZP said if we did hit 200 subs today, he would in fact shave his eyebrows. No. So maybe we can get that going.
Oh, that's a risky one. The eyebrows are risky, man.
No, like eyebrows, you are literally better like shaving your head of the comparison, because like you just, and I'm not gonna do either, by the way, but I mean, shaving the eyebrows, like people think it's like, oh, it's just eyebrows, how bad could it be? You know, months later, God, they're still not actually grown back in yet. Like, no, you don't want to lose the eyebrow, bet that it's terrible.
It's fine, because then we can have another sub goal of ZP tattoos on new eyebrows. Then it's no. Like double.
Instead ZP like waxes off his mustache on either side, and that becomes his new eyebrow.
Ooh,
I don't think that's usually not a historically good look, Jason, as far as hitting the mustache and all, you know. But
well, we are just waiting for the game to kick off. I believe we're still trying to get everyone into the lobby. Virtus.pro and Parivision. I mean, not only you and I having long days, so did they, as they did have 2 matches each over the course of today. Virtus.pro with a very early start, actually kicking off things around noon, which I know you out there are probably thinking of. Noon? That's not that late. Well, for gamers, that's quite late. For pro players in Deadlock and EU, that is quite late. So hopefully we should be getting things underway shortly. But also with one win waiting in the sidelines, they've been served up a loss against like the NA, I don't want to say super team, I'll say conglomerate that they are up against with Thanos, which I still hate that name. Why couldn't they just name themselves Thanos? That'd be so much easier. With Thanos over in the one win Bombshell. So I'm curious if they're going to actually lose that 1-2-0, because ABL has been wanting to play these NA teams. And from what
he's hungry, man. He's in my DMs. I don't have anything to do with this.
But I've been hearing they've been beating the likes of Hydronation like 2-0 pretty easily. And for them to now lose to this like mixed team, that's not a good look for them.
I do respect it though. I respect the hunger.
Well, speaking of hunger, I'm hungry to see how this one goes. I mean, again, as much as it feels like I've been, the #1 Lash hater of the last few days, I would like to see it work. I feel like with E-Shift getting nerfed, we are more in an era where you would hope that people find a way if it is viable. It's just the overall evidence hasn't been there, but I will be very closely paying attention to the lanes as we get set up here, see how it works. And, you know, we haven't really seen this today, Jason. The Geist Yamato middle lane. Usually Geist is off in the side lanes. Middle Geist, pretty uncommon.
Yeah, I think maybe we see it like once today, but it was out of like the qualifying teams that got through into one-win bombshell. But I would agree, and I also look at like why is it not Holiday and Mo in middle at the same time for the side of Parivision? Like, you know, VP I can kind of understand because they want to switch things up and mix things up, but we've seen Holiday and Mo be such a strong combo. For them to split up, I feel like they're kind of splitting hairs here.
Well, I guess also at the same time is that trade-off of, do we want a pretty weak lane, which we feel like we're definitely going to lose pretty fast, or do we want to kind of just be somewhat stable on 2 lanes? I guess is maybe the trade-off there, as opposed to like one super strong lane. At least that's what my brain is saying. I don't know. I've induced a lot of brain damage over the years too. I was
gonna say, are you sleep deprived? Deprived? Oh my god! I can't shut up.
There we go. I love it. Let's hear more of that.
Well, maybe I can speak. I don't think I've had any major flub yet, but yeah. Look, my final thought here before I leave you guys to it. As I look at the lanes as they take shape, I think splitting the Holiday Mo actually is the worst idea, because we already saw today where you had like Holiday Mo lane all in one lane and you didn't have map mobility, and it wasn't particularly great. So I think you're spreading out your early game power, particularly when you hit 3K souls, and making a lot of the map, you know, a real danger. I definitely don't hate it, but it does put more emphasis on your 3K soul spike.
Okay, well, we'll check in with you a little bit later on, ZP. Thank you for sticking with us here as we got underway with this first match with Virtus.pro up against Parivision in a best of 1 to see who goes up against one win in the finals. We're seeing quite a mix-up considering what we've had these last 2 days, obviously having a Pocket and an Abrams being played. The Lash, it kind of pains me to say we've seen more consistent than Pocket, than Abrams, though the win record not really supporting the consistency out of him. But with Parivision, this is like the 4th week in a row, I feel like, Dan, that they've played against Virtus.pro and they've lost. I feel like we need to see some growth within the team. I think last week they did show some having a much better performance, but still not able to battle out against VP when it came to like the mid game. But they have to show some adaptation and growth as a team now.
Yeah, and do you think it's tough because with all of these, I mean, these significant patches, which really fundamentally change how the pacing, at least, if nothing else, works in the game, and the economy, the fact that you're getting less average souls per minute on the lanes because now the waves spawn every 30 seconds instead of every 25, that adds up. That changes a lot of these equations, and then you've nerfed all of the early game power. So it's like, this is a big patch, honestly, in terms of gameplay changes. And I feel like, as I mentioned previously, VP's probably the team that stylistically is best suited to kind of feel comfortable in this pretty quickly. That's gonna be an interesting question for one win later. But yeah, Parivision, we'll see what they've been cooking over time in terms of addressing some of their weaknesses. And I feel like, you know, VP in theory at the same time, they're looking the least dominant ever, and so they're not going to have all the confidence that they would have had previously when they were dominating. So this is a great spot for Parivision to take advantage of, to maybe find a win. And I'm curious how these lanes will work out, because in you know, we've talked about it in theory about the splitting up of Holiday and Mo, but in practice now, as we see kind of Mo, or rather Holiday, being forced to go back to base for healing, we're going to get VP picking up a lot of potential tower damage here if they can push the issue a little bit further. They can't just yet. Still have a nice presence from Together on the Shiv.
Yeah, and looking at the middle lane here, when you have Zergy on Geist and you have D-Mob over on the Yamato, I'm kind of thinking, like, who would you split off? And speaking of them, they go for the dive directly against Together here. Shout transformation has been used. D-Mob just hit 3K and use it to just survive. Zergy yet to hit the 3K mark. And they will escape with that early kill, still all tied up pretty much when it comes to souls. But you also mentioned something, another interesting topic about, like, you know, VP, well, maybe Zergy's gonna go down from this one. He doesn't hit the 3K just yet. They need to kill something. Just one more troop would have gotten him his 3K for the swap, but it doesn't matter. D-Mob comes back in for another kill on the task and punishes him, getting that 2-for-1 trade. But as I'm trying to say, Virtus.pro have been, like, mentally battered, I feel like, the last month, losing to one win so consistently, because there was a time where they lost a one win, came back in one win bombshell, beat them in a best of 5, came back in a DFN, slaughtered them in a 2-0, but they have struggled and only gotten one map the last 3 times they've met.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they are sort of playing as a team, as we saw that just that one instance there between Demov and Zergy on the mid lane, where Zergy just connected some nice damage, and then immediately Demov, I mean, I don't think there can really even be time for communication looking at how fast Demov reacted to dive. They were in sync. They were very much in sync there. So if the whole team is kind of playing in sync like that, I would expect that we will see more confidence from VP, because that was great stuff. Like, when you're making plays at this level, like, sometimes you just all have to be on the same page. You don't have time to communicate, and that's where you'll see the best results. So it's a nice start here so far, I feel like, for VP in that regard. And there's a nice combo. It's going to enable, well, looks like a trade there. Sort of coming in from Obikim. And Obikim trying to chase this one down. Can he find the pockets? Just about, but will he be able to get out of here? It's so hard to escape Mo when you're in close proximity, but it looks like that will be what happens. So slight edge for VP now, Jason.
Yeah, and going back to the topic we had earlier on with ZT about like splitting up the Mo and Holiday, if you want to have a pocket, have a decent start into the game, I mean, one way to do so is definitely to give them a Mo, because that combo is almost going to guarantee you a kill with the Affliction. When you're able to amp your own damage, get your full combo off with ease without having a chance of missing. That's definitely like one route that we could see Parivision go to, but that's a lot of pressure to put onto Wolfie. And, you know, we haven't really talked too much about the right lane either in this matchup. We've had Saf there, who does have Death Slam available, paired up with Prestus on the Mirage, both sitting over 4K, up against Holistic, and of course, Michaelis, both sitting at 4.4 apiece. It's been fun enough, relatively the quiet lane so far in this game.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. I'm curious now, you know, what that pocket trajectory will look like. Because we can see, you know, just relative terms, okay, Wolfie is 4.1k, and, you know, the players that are doing a bit better on the other team, you know, you're up to like 4.8 and 5k. So, I mean, not really all that far behind. It looks pretty even so far. And if we take stock of the tower damage, this is one of the interesting things. If a lane is getting won a little bit too hard, then that team that's winning that lane a little bit too much is going to be converting that into actual tower damage. But if it's contested, well, as we kind of see here, everywhere, we're not really seeing that much damage going onto the towers. I don't think any tower is particularly weak. Maybe that mid tower for Parivision has taken maybe the most damage, losing about 25% of its health pools. So far, actually, pretty even game in the early game, Jason. But I don't know what you feel about this. You've watched more on this patch than I have at the moment. Is it more common to see just closer early games now that you've sapped some of the power from some of the more dominant early game heroes?
I would say in a lot of the matches we've seen that were more close and weren't stompy, it would take a little bit longer for the Guardians to go down. But obviously in the stomps, we would see 4, 5, 6 minute Guardians quite early. I have to get back to top pick in a second as the lasso immediately blows up Zerg with the help of Together. And you can see Dino already backing away in the lane that we talked about as being relatively quiet. We'll see Listic to go down here with Prestus with a nice dive with the use of that tornado. Sitting on 1,800 souls to spend. And then we'll speaking of Guardian damage, you're going to start to see it come through. I think if anything, we see teams that have like Mo's and Holidays have those like facilitators for a lot of these early ganks. They want to get those Guardians down really quickly so they can rotate that player out and leave that lane solo for a farmer. Like looking at the left lane, if they can take this tower, you're going to see Litz leave. And you can see Wolfie just stick to that lane, farm up as much as possible, then he can get involved in these fights when he can. Or even in the mid lane, if they're able to take that down, you can free up now Taz to go rotate around, and that allows Together just to free farm for the most part. But to go back to your original question, yeah, I'd say things maybe have gotten a little bit slower when the games are more equal.
I think you just also raised a super good point as to a great argument for putting the Mo and the Holiday on the same lane, so that you can have a tower down really quick, and then the Mo and the Holiday are unleashed to roam, which seems like a huge strong point for both of those heroes. So that's another interesting aspect of it. But yeah, go ahead.
No, and on that note, like, well, I guess I have to get back to the paradoxical swap coming through onto Together and the chase with the flying strike. Also, not to mention, with Obi can actually rotate over towards this middle lane, looking for the kill, leaving Shark alone towards the left lane to defend against the two. But one thing I think ZP and I have kind of like caught on to is that maybe it hasn't been tapped into fully at a lot of these teams, but there's a lot of advantage of taking an early Guardian and then putting the player you want to get fed on that farm. If you want to allocate your resources to that specific player, that specific hero, you swap them into that lane, no matter what lane they're in, for them just to continually farm up and then become that really late game power. We've seen multiple games in One Win Bombshell where players would get like 3, 4, 5,000 souls ahead and then have massive impact when they get into these fights. And speaking of fights, we have another one kicking off here with that affliction going off.
Yeah, and right now it feels like across all of the lanes, Parivision are in the tug of war, getting more progress on their end of things. We've got a dive coming in on that left side in the mid here. We've got also Parivision, pushed up against the tower, or at least the stairs. So putting on more pressure here. But this also does leave them a bit more vulnerable to getting dived on. So they're going to be pretty cautious if ults are up, that you can get in trouble when you're that deep. But that said, we'll have the Yamato coming off the rope there to try to keep that damage in. The Geist, Zergi, coming back onto the mid lane. And there it is. Demon will take down together. Again, pretty committed position. Holiday off that rope is in on the action and doing exactly what needs to be done, which is just backing off. And the lane goes into parity again. So left lane and mid lane, Jason, the Guardians getting pretty weak now for VP.
Yeah, very weak. And that's very worrisome if you're a VP fan out here. Once that Guardian goes down, you're going to free up some really powerful initiators and playmakers for the side of Parivision that they could easily use to bounce back into this game. But as we do approach the 10-minute mark here now, Urn is obviously going to be a big talking point, as it looks like the movement buff will be picked up by Zergi, who's actually wandered over to the right-hand lane. They swapped things up. Well, not swap things up. He's head back towards the mid lane. Just want to secure it on the right-hand side. I would expect to see an Urn fight momentarily, but the thing is, if you go for the Urn and you commit to it, you're going to lose the Guardian. And that could be what happens here for VP on the left side now.
Well, I like this dynamic now that the Urn is in play. I am curious what the story of this Urn is going to be at the moment. You've got that Mohawk of the combo around the corner, getting the catch there. The desperate escape from Obi-Kim. It looks labored. Is there an escape here? Burrow comes out to try to finish this one off. Catches the Calico. Sharik will get somewhat low here. Is there a way to get out of here? Ult is popped. And still, we do have Litz out there. And we'll get the finish onto Obi-Kim thanks to Wolfie, who was in tow with the assist there. Lovely stuff there on the left side for Parivision, but going into mid lane is all VP as they're pushing back the forces straight into the Guardian. The dive there is successful, and it's looking like they could convert this into some more tower damage as well. But in the meantime, Jason, we got that Urn. It's been captured by Parivision. Litz is ferrying it across the map.
Yeah, if he's gonna move it across the map, he's got to do it quickly, because Virtus.pro are gonna take down that Guardian and then use it as a transition point to get towards this right-hand lane, where right now, with Obi-Kim rotating over from base on the respawn, he's looking to reinforce this right-hand lane, looking to take down Prestus. He's trying to run away on this Mirage. Tornado used to go to the safety of Sap, who's currently sitting on 9k souls, even gonna Traveler away. Probably actually back towards his base here. He headed over to Together. He's gonna have to return very quickly. But also, you have to look at this. Is this Urn actually being attempted by Parivision, or are they just looking to use it to take this middle Guardian to get their flex set unlocked?
Yeah, that's a great point. And the thing is, either way, VP have so many players here, they don't want to waste their time. They're going to commit to taking this tower down. So in a perfect world, yeah, we get the gank coming across here from Parivision from the mid. And there's going to be a 4v4 here with this flanking positioning on the peripheral of the fight from Parivision. Let's see if it's going to work out for them. Oh, well, that's not good there, because Taz gets caught and isolated, and he's now effectively too weak to be in the fight, which gives an advantage to VP here with stronger numbers, with that strong front line. But even still, Together in the mix there. Looks like the damage is coming in from Parivision, and they are sending VP back towards their own Guardian here. Great work from them. And the fact that they didn't even lose their Guardian on this lane, this is already a huge win for Parivision. They're going to get the Guardian. Is there any other hero kills that they can get on top of this to make it even better, even sweeter? Well, it looks like they understand they need to get the hell out of there. There's a lot of ults being used here. VP are, I mean, they're really doing so much damage, and it looks like it's looking so good, Jason, but now Parivision going to lose their own Guardian.
Looking good until it wasn't. I mean, Litz, he got the turn in after that Guardian was taken in towards middle, and we saw the farm come through at us Together. He immediately rotated towards that right-hand lane to give him that man advantage, even though Tass did get caught out and got dropped very low. But Virtus probably able to pick up the 3 kills off of the back of that. Though they might lose out on Listic here with the Lasso coming through, even the Affliction for good measure, and the combo on top of this. Parivision immediately strike back off of that in the left lane, confirming even more kills, getting themselves a nice 4K lead. So, I mean, my question earlier on was Parivision, are they going to start to show some improvements over the course of these weeks to be able to take down VP, who have consistently beat them the last 3 to 4 weeks now? I guess we are getting the answer of yes, but can they maintain it is going to be my next question.
I got to jump in straight away, Jason, because the immediate reaction from Parivision was they're like, okay, we won that fight. Invade the jungle. They're in the jungle of VP right now. They're stealing up those Sinner sacrifices. All the Gamba is being taken away in the moments when VP were on the respawns. So Parivision, yeah, they are leveraging the advantage that they just get to compound it into bigger gains. And so that's a great sign here. These are small edges, but they add up.
Something that Aegis Aurora didn't do too often against VP earlier on today. And it's good to see Parivision have that mindset of you got to take a mile here when you're given an inch. Even Shark might be getting caught out here and towards middle, trying to counter out these waves, trying to catch out with Ava, at least get some early information. And you can even see that Virtus.pro, they kind of set up for that potential play as well, but Michaela's going to be pushed on. The lasso, not sure if it's going to quite connect here, as it looks like it did miss. Michaela is able to turn this around for a kill, but they're just outmanned. They're outgunned now. And Obakim's just got to turn tail and run. If anything, buy some time for Shark to get this middle lane walker damage done. But the combo comes through. Obakim gets locked down and together closes it out. And Parivision come out with 2.
It's a pretty clutch combo kill. I think if he gets to that jump pad, I think he's gone. He's out of there. But nice kill though. At least, you know, evening things up on the Guardian front for VP, picking up that left side. But 5k advantage on the souls overall for Parivision. And to be honest, given the fact that they had that successful jungle invade previously, you know, it feels like they're a bit ahead right now. And I like how they're roaming in a pack at the moment, really using that lasso and that combo kill to really extract max value in the roaming.
Oh, they might be getting caught out here, though. At least they have the backup from the lane. The backup's going to have to come in very quickly. You also see Obakim just immediately boost in towards the right-hand side. They want to reinforce this earned pickup and potentially even get some of these catches. Parivision do back off. Press is able to tornado away from this one. But funny enough, during all of this, you know what we have not seen? We have not seen Saf do really anything so far, though he's sitting on 14,000 souls. And as Parivision do turn around and immediately take down Obakim, they might be giving up ground over towards this earned turn-in where Saf's going to have to be the one to distract and buy time for his team to get here.
Yeah, and I'm actually really looking forward to seeing how Saf plays the positional game with the death slams. I mean, that's such a big part of being a good Lash player. Using this high ground, finding the right avenue to maximize the ult. It can completely win a team fight if it's done effectively. But look at the game sense here. VP on the roof. Demov is able to spot, Zergy, sorry, is able to spot this one out with the Geist. So they know the Lash is up in that position. That's a huge bit of info for the team, for VP. So they don't get caught by this. And you can see the positioning here. Parivision are effectively blocking the delivery routes that VP won, and so VP are in a spot where they can't do anything with this urn.
It's just about keeping an eye on how you allocate your resources now, a very crucial time where teams can get quite far ahead. If you overcommit too many players towards that urn to defend it, you're losing out on farm around the map, and we can see Virtus.pro are taking advantage of this. They're keeping Obakim near Shark, waiting for the counter gank to come through for TAS, which actually might be happening. You can see TAS and Prestis both going to be in the 2-on-2. Obakim's going to spot out TAS. He's going to back away, make the call for Shark to run. And the urn, it was, you know, being pushed over towards the turn-in. It's going to be stopped, though. There's no way that turn-in's going to come through. The warp stone into the combo directly onto Listic. He's down to 800 HP. He's just trying to survive, but it doesn't seem to matter. Saf comes in from the high ground with the ground slam. And I don't know how that lasso misses in such a tight area to actually connect into. But either way, the fight's going to continue over towards the urn.
There's that Lash coming in from up high. Gets a couple with that ground stomp, ground strike, ground slam. Your choice, dealer's choice. Now Parivision are in an interesting spot here because they're actually getting a walker on the right side. Prestis on that Mirage has decided not to TP over with the Traveler. Had access to that Traveler for a long time, and they're just going to commit into getting that walker. Will it be interesting to see if that ends up helping them, because VP completely wiped out Parivision, which may not have been the case had Prestis decided to use the Traveler early on in the fight. So again, it's all about the trade-offs here. And for Parivision, they're going to be up a walker, but now the soul difference is even.
And to be fair, that flex slot can be quite huge. Not as big, I think, right now as if we were to, you know, fast forward another 5 minutes. But as we do start to slow things down here, I think it's time to bring in ZP and take stock of how this match is kind of broken out and how Parivision, honestly, have really come into this game looking pretty solid.
I mean, yes, they have, but on the same note, they kind of have to with the comp they're in. They're running a comp that is way more geared to the early game. They're running the Holiday Mo comp, which, when you look at the overall scaling of both teams, they need to be ahead for this comp to actually carry them into the end game. And the fact that Virtus.pro is now slightly ahead, let alone being even, is absolutely terrible to them. DMOV in particular got a ton of soul allocation in his way with how that last fight broke down, where Parivision was trying to min-max in terms of getting the walker at the same time as the fight, and while they're able to get the walker, you look at the overall effect of that, DMOV was able to get a ton of farm, and as this game goes on, short of investing both lasso and combo every fight on the DMOV before Shout Transformation comes into play, I think things could get wildly out of hand for Parivision, because when you look at the Lash, also on top of it, a little bit more trending towards early to mid-game power, and Pocket, who just does not scale the way he used to, I think Parivision is actually in deep, deep trouble here, despite the economy seemingly being even.
Let's go to Broadway.
Okay. Definitely some valid points being made in there. I didn't even notice that DMOV was, so far ahead as you bring it up. 21,000 souls for him. Definitely leading the charge. And speaking of charges, shoulder charges, Listic at 15K. I mean, just last week alone, we did see AVG being fed over a lot of farm to keep the Abrams at a point that he could be a viable option in these fights, so he doesn't fall behind. And currently he's sitting at 16K, not really too far behind his team. But either way, I mean, Parivision, I still think macro-wise, they're coming in much better today than they have in previous times. But Dan, as we start to transition to the next urn in about 10 seconds time, you sure as hell know that's exactly what Parivision are setting up for here on this left-hand side.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And, Lasso is going to miss, get staked as well. This is not good news. Divine Barrier comes out, and great movement there for the escape. And that's what Holiday is there to do. Get into dangerous positions off the jump pad. Still, I think, somehow up, but there we go. Finally goes down. So much damage coming out there. Not an ideal start to the fight for Parivision, going 5v6. And the commitment now for VP to try to finish things off here, forcing the engage. Now, look at this. We've got a Pocket getting caught. Wolfie getting caught on the side here, trying to play around the sides of the big fight. And it's just all VP here. Brilliant team fight. Splitting up, isolating each player one by one. Now we've got DMOV coming into full force. And it is terrifying to behold. And VP are loving this one. And this is potentially an inflection point, Jason. I think without a strong affliction to start the fight, to connect onto that heavy front line of VP, Parivision are really going to struggle in these big team fights.
I mean, the affliction, the death slam, Listic was able to survive the combo plus like 2 other people hitting him out of Litz. You need to be able to kill that target right away. Even though you did push Litz out, you still had a lot of other high priority targets available. And now Virtus.pro, they're going to be able to lock down the Rejuvenator. They're going to be able to get the Urn turn in as well off of this. They have just had a massive swing in the biggest turning point we're going to see in this game. Going back to what ZP was saying, you need to have that strong mid game here for Parivision, but you can't be missing hooks. You can't be getting caught out here, and you can't be getting engaged on unless you have a great turnaround death slam out of Sak, which in that fight, unfortunately, just did not have.
And so it's an interesting spot now for VP. They're going to get, for the first time, I feel like, map control, like a big chunk of map control with that rejuve coming into play. They can invade the jungle. They can put so much pressure onto Parivision. For Parivision, it really feels like they need to be very careful not to get caught in team fights, obviously, at this point. At the same time, I feel like they need, hold that thought. We could have just an immediate catch here onto Prestis, and that's an unfortunate loss for Parivision. And this Walker is under full assault.
Prestis has been given a lot of free farm too in that right-hand lane, able to get the Walker before, and he blew up so damn fast to enter the shadows by Sharik. He's looking to retreat away from Wolfie, who's going for the chase. There's backup for him. Will come in the form of Zergy, but I think it's just going to be too late before he does fall. There he goes. Finally, he does die. But again, Rejuvenator is going to be coming back in for Virtus.pro, still trading at least one of these kills on the Prestis. And I wouldn't be too surprised to see Virtus.pro back away from this now. Wait for those respawns to come through. Those Zergy is sitting on 7,000 souls. They honestly, Virtus.pro right now, they need to get a Walker off this Rejuvenator. They need to be able to spend these souls on some big purchases. Debuff remover picked up now for Zergy. So sitting on another 4K to spend. Toxic Bullets picked up. And this is getting really tough for Parivision, where if you lose like this next fight, I think you're ultimately just going to lose the match.
Yeah, they're in a really delicate position. I think that's so true. And I think they did a great job getting those 2 kills to really slow down the efforts. They actually even managed to keep the Walker alive, which is pretty huge, because that's the singular objective advantage that Parivision currently hold, is the defeat of that right side Walker. But at the same time, big pressure on the left Walker, big pressure on the right Walker. This creates issues for Parivision because they have to figure out how do we split our defense here. And that's by design for VP.
feel like you just full commit to one of these fights and then you teleport over to the other lane. And you can maybe defend against this. I can see Litz on the minimap has gotten aggressive to spot out someone on the right-hand side. Teleports are going to be used as they did shove the wave as quick as they possibly could. The chase coming on this left-hand side. The disengage trying to come through Sap. You just need to get a catch onto one here to really open things up, or maybe Litz can do so. As Shark gets locked down by the combo, and he most likely will not be escaped from this one. Warpstone used to try to catch up onto him. Obikim has gone down to Wolfie. That was on the left-hand side of the map. But in the meantime, Virtus.pro's response was, we're just going to shove mid. We're going to look for the walker there. We're going to find the hole in the defense of Parivision and punish him for it.
Yeah, and this is a great reason to like split your attack between the left and the right side. If the true mission, the true objective is actually that mid walker. Parivision though chasing things down to see if they can catch any of these stragglers who are trying to retreat, disengage. And look, well, Dimov is pretty weak here on the Yamato. Yamato can be pretty slippery though. We'll see if there's a catch to be made. There we go. It's going to be the killing blow coming on through from Together. And all right, Parivision not too far behind. Now the rejuve threat is gone. They didn't lose too much of a lead. They also have 10k. That's pretty good, honestly. Like, it's a pretty good result from the rejuve.
Yeah, I think it was a decent hold, all things considered. They did lose out on one walker getting over the flex thought, but I mean, at the end of the day, it could have been much worse, as they did have a decent response to the attack out of Virtus.pro. And I think in the situation they were in, it was difficult to defend all three walkers with rejuved up minions coming their way. So Parivision, they're holding on here, but it still, at least to me, feels like it's just that one fight that's going to determine how this game is going to go. For Virtus.pro, I think if they win a fight pretty cleanly, I think that's going to be the game for them. If Parivision win a fight, I think they need to win maybe even one more on top of that to really have a solid chance of getting back into this, of at least, you know, pushing Virtus.pro into that like 40-minute mark.
Okay, well, aggressive Parivision going for the catch here, finding it off of the combo. Obikim will take a dirt nap, and Parivision will be quickly out of there using the rope. And they have the urn as well, but, well, VP have control of the left side of the map at current times. So it's going to be interesting to see how this one develops. They're going to be making their way across here. And it's, yeah, this urn fight could be pretty huge here, Jason. Might be an opportunity for a potential death slam from Saf if he's able to get into a good position.
He's going to have to swap over the urn to someone else, but maybe this is a good time to bring in Alex, not even ZP. It's going to be Alex, the man himself, if he has the energy for it. He's not too sleep deprived, to talk to us about the state of this urn right now.
Yeah, the state of the urn right now is that Parivision is desperately trying to hold on to where they're at in the game. And right now, they open up with the Holiday, lasso onto Abrams, who's got a seismic slam out of there. Their early to mid-game advantage from Parivision has just been really eradicated, and now they have to look down at Yamato, who's almost as terrifying as me.
I could hear some wrestling commentary with that kind of voice, and I would be very, very happy. The urn now sitting at the turret-in spot. Shadow Transformation going to be coming through at a D-Mob, looking for the chase, looking to catch out directly onto Wolfie. They're able to pick up the urn and back away from here, not really feeling fully committed that they can actually secure this one, and instead trying to go for the deny, throws it away so no one can turn it in the midst of this fight. As Michaelis on the high ground is just looking for these snipes off towards the side. But you can see Parivision, their health is getting so low. Tass is down to 1 HP. Litz is down to 1 HP. But in the meantime, they're able to pick up the kills onto Demob, on a Shark as well. Michaelis with those snipes able to take down Litz, at least Tass. He has to be very careful about his position. You can see on the minimap, he has backed away to maybe look for the urn instead. The Virtus.pro on the Overwatch position are looking still to defend this turret.
Yeah, and finally, Presta is really getting his, you know, what you like to see in a Mirage fight. Just basically getting to fire your gun almost consistently at your opponents, building up the Jin's mark here, getting a little bit low. Demon, or rather, Sagi, always a problem, always a problem. Tornado comes in, and it's so low. And oh my goodness, that's so unfortunate for Presta. Sagi able to get out of that one with 2 kills in hand.
Did I just, okay.
Was it deep from you on the Jin's mark?
I thought we saw an Echo Shard tornado, unless I'm just really sleep deprived out of Prestis. Is that right? If we can potentially hop over to his items really quick? I thought I saw 2 tornadoes in that fight, like one right after another. I could be wrong. I am on very little sleep from today. But the urn gonna be picked back up again for Saf and moved over towards the left-hand side once again. So we're gonna have another refight breakout here between these teams. Position though held by VP here, Dan.
Yes, and the mid boss being now up at the same time raises the stakes to a lost fight. In fact, it could be game ending.
Okay, no Echo Shard. I'm just sleep deprived. I don't know why I thought I saw 2 tornadoes there, but thank you, observers. Appreciate that production for showing us. But VP have given up ground. Instead, they're going for the rejuve, while the urn is going to be secured for Parivision. I think this is just a complete give up. I don't think they have a chance to contest. They're too far out of position, and a trade that VP is willing to make.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I mean, VP didn't, again, capitalize massively off the last rejuve. You would expect this to be a little bit different. We're later in the game here. And now the question is, if Parivision can catch a couple picks, either through, a use of Death Slam, something like that, before VP is in like a good battle formation where they're all kind of somewhat together. Like right now, for example, if you're in a position to like initiate onto 1 or 2 players and have a slight numbers advantage to get those kills, that would actually kill so much time on the rejuve, and it would give you a lot of breathing room if you're Parivision. The worst case scenario is when essentially all the lanes start to get pushed, and then VP can kind of roll in as a death ball, and you can't have access to slowing them down in any way, and they can exert their advantage much more fully. But with that said, Jason, we saw Parivision down 10k post last rejuve. They were ahead slightly, 3k or 3k on the souls. So whatever they're doing right now in terms of managing their economy, despite giving up 2 rejuves, is working.
Yeah, the last urn turn in plus the cleanup of that fight definitely helping out when it comes to souls. Make sure to farm the jungle before this next fight breaks out, which honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see VP not really do much off of this, considering how much time's already gone through with the rejuve, sitting on 1 minute and 40 left on it. It's also interesting to note that, you saw Listic's items there. So instead of going for the Fleetfoot, is going for Warpstone instead to kind of make up for that mobility. Because you won't have the HMC tech to use anymore. The next turn has spawned in. Maybe this is exactly what they're going to be using the rejuve for, to secure the urn and at least for them get a lead when it comes to souls. And Parivision is set up for it. We're talking about these initial picks, and honestly, like some of these ults out of Saf that haven't been too impressive. Maybe I'm being too judgmental. And the last fight we saw towards the urn on the left-hand side, he used it onto Michaelis only, I believe, when he was sitting back on top of these some of these buildings, and they're able to get the kill onto him. But I still feel like there could be more he's grabbing. But at the same time, like, if he just gets like 1 or 2 in the initial part of the fight and they get kills off that, the value's there. He doesn't need to hit these big 5-6 man death slams, because then they also have the pick potential with Blast. So with combo, which we're seeing right now, Demov, and there's no backup here to take down Demov. He's just going to debuff remover. Even the rescue beam going to come through for him to get away. But at least they forced him out of the fight initially.
Yeah, and the fight now kind of making its way a little bit further back towards the Parivision Walker. And Parivision, they're going to lose together pretty quick here. And looking at the health bars, VP pretty damn healthy at the moment. Listic took a lot of damage on the Abrams, but able to disengage and allow his teammates to do the rest of the damage. They're continuing to pursue the fight as well. The death ball for VP is absolutely alive right now and is pushing forwards, knocking at the door of this right side Walker. And Parivision going to have to do everything they can to try to defend it. They don't really have that much. I mean, there's still potentially an Affliction left, but it feels like too late for an Affliction to really have impact in the fight. So Wolfie is going to try to delay things here, in and out with the cloak and the satchel. And VP, I don't think they're going to be denied this. Walker, at this rate right now, they are not being deterred.
I want to make sure they get the urn turned in. Rejuve has disappeared, so I think they're being a little bit cautious here on that push in towards the Walker, as they have been able to finally take the soul lead back for themselves. We can see the Wolfies farming up the left-hand side while all this is happening. And again, like, I think this is kind of the state of best of ones, is that you don't want to make these major mistakes, and it costs you that chance to go up against one win and potentially win out $1,000. And I kind of respect it. It's just tough to know that one mistake could cost the game, especially this late in it, as we're at the 32-minute mark. Oh man, I think I'm having a stroke. I'm gonna go like take 30 grams of creatine after this game.
Yeah, you should. Well, so really interesting game so far, because if we look at one of the points CP raised previously, like, so right to raise, is the scaling question of which team scales better into the late game. And if you're the team that scales better into the late game, you don't mind playing a slow game like this, where things are somewhat even, because it will look even on the souls, but you're gonna end up having more value even if the souls are even, just because of how much better your team scales. So very little jungle left on the map, and a couple minutes left for the next urn. This is one of those spots where it's ripe to find picks. So we'll see if Parivision can do so. They're kind of working on that one. You can see right now they're in position trying to work on it, but at the same time, really cool from Sharik to see him there on Ava, just trying to get information, trying to scout. It's like the human ward, essentially, in cat form. and it's a really good way to use the Calico. And look at the scouting here from Parivision. They're really trying to find something and pressure this left side walker.
Man, if we ever get like a dog skin for Calico, I'm gonna be so happy, and I'm gonna buy that ASAP. I don't want to see any cats on my screen. All these cat lovers out there in chat.
Oh my god.
But yeah, I mean, I really hate cats, man. You're like the worst pet. But anyways, before I get any hate in chat in about 45 seconds of time when it actually gets put out to them, both teams playing so cautious. 33 minutes. I mean, mid boss spawning in 30. And then we have the urn spawning in about a minute from now. So pretty much a 30-second window when Rejuve respawns through. And maybe we're seeing Virtus.pro kind of already position themselves for it. They have to obviously push out the right lane a little bit more again because Press is continuing to get farmed up at 41,000 souls, and Saf as well at 37,000. Big chunk of their economy in those three players were together. He's the one falling far behind, 30K. Not really that impressive, but to be fair, at the same time, as long as he has his ult maxed out, he can still put down a lot of pain in these fights. He can still clean up these fights if he gets to that point, if they have the damage across the board.
And the cool thing too is, you know, Wolfie and Prestis, Pocket and Mirage, really great job in their farm. Really, really great job. That's exactly where you want to see them, like leading the way on the team essentially, and especially I think Wolfie with Pocket, because we talked a lot about that. But I'll hold that thought for a second because we have a fight that's brewing here in around the mid, or rather the right buff bridge. We'll see what can be found here. You got a potential lasso, got a barrel tossed up there. It's going to catch a couple players. Are we going to get a death slam here from Saf? Definitely would love to land a good one, but needs to find the right moment when the opponents are distracted to get good coverage. Right now, everybody is fighting around the mid side, and it's going to be very tough here for Parivision because they are doing the right, or VP are doing the right thing. They're operating in these closed spaces, and they get a pick off in the closed spaces. Still even on the overall souls, but it feels like VP are definitely, you know, the advantage seems to forever be sort of on their side.
Well, at least for Parivision, they do get the left-hand walker while this is happening. Shark going to go for the chase on the press. He's just going to travel their way smartly enough. So again, at least they get something off at lose one player, but yeah, you still get a pretty big objective here. But there's still a big objective to be taken with the Ryuju currently up in towards middle. So Parivision have to be so careful to not lose on any other player. Saf to go for the death slam. It's actually going to cancel out on this one. Actually, no, maybe he did hit the KLS in that. Michaelis might be all they need, but Zergi's there to immediately back up his teammate. Metal Skin being used out of Saf to try to like buy some time, but he's going to fall while Demov has dove in deep into the backlines of Parivision, and it's all going the way of Virtus.pro. Only Prestis and Task left remaining. Task has been able to escape back towards his own base, but Virtus.pro are going to punish the rest of Parivision, and you know they're going to have themselves Urn and Rejuve off this. By the way, DDK, I have to mention, did you say Deathy was looking for a good death slam? You got Deathy on the mind, or did I mishear that? Again,
did I say that?
I honestly,
really tired, so third-party judge, he did say that, and I was wondering, I was like, wait, did he just say Deathy? What is going on here?
How much you pay you to do that, Dan?
I think it's going to be the fault of one of you two. I feel like, I don't know, the association from all those NA broadcasts. I feel like it's somebody's fault here, not mine. I feel like it's not my fault.
Okay. How could be associated for the NA broadcast when TF2 Boomers has dodged invites like the last 5 weeks in a row?
Whoa,
you're not getting out that easy, Dan. I'm sorry.
Well, I just want to blame. Come on, you understand?
Zergi getting lassoed and cobbled under Walker, and he still comes out to survive the fight. What the hell? That should have been a guaranteed kill coming through, and the rest of, well, VP are going to be here. Demov, he's going to be the one chasing forward. Opikim's going to be teleporting from the left-hand side as they took a walker over there. Listic takes the right-hand walker, and VP are starting to grab a massive lead of 27,000 souls and looking to take the base. Presses Wolfie. They need to respawn back through, but Blitz down with 74 seconds on the respawn. This is a lot of ground that VP can get.
Yeah, we'll see what they can do here. Obviously, it's with Saf has that. Sorry, I mean Deathy has that Death Slam online. So we'll see what Deathy's able to do.
Roster changes
turn
here,
the game. Gotta lean in, man. You gotta lean in. Gotta own it. Gotta own the mistakes that you're not to blame for. That's what I always say. So, all right. So this is a difficult situation for Parivision. I mean, it feels like they've been holding on. You know, they've been holding on, but at no point are they able to like actually have enough like arm strength to kind of do that pull up. They're on the edge of the cliff. They can like their grip strength is working for them, but they don't have any more pulling strength left to actually like get back on top and start making things happen. I don't know if this analogy is really working for you, Jason, but
I understand it. I mean, I've bouldered I can't really do pull-ups that easily. I can do chin-ups, but not really pull-ups. The last one has come in out of task. I think that was on the Listic, who's just going to shoulder charge through to look for the shrine to go down. Demov, the shadow transformation come through. Finally, a big death slam coming through, but Parivision need to capitalize off this as they have not got a kill from that just yet. Saf backs away. And the rest of Parivision, with everyone respawn back through, are looking to defend something for their side. Michaelis is going to fall. Shard looking to run, or turn tail and run as he gets comboed back to his team. And he should, I guess, ideally die, but he still has Enter the Shadows left available to run away with. As Virtus.pro will lose out on Obi Kim, but the Rejuvenator are going to get them back online here momentarily. I think one hole we've seen, though, for Parivision is, I feel like the Mo and Krill has massively fallen off. And ZP, I guess we can bring you in for this. We've seen multiple times now where these combos come through, and they're not able to kill that target.
I mean, you're just outscaled at this point. There's no other way of putting it, where when you run the Holiday Mo comp, you have a window to win the game and get ahead. Parivision missed the window, and there's a reason why Yamato is so incredibly highly valued right now, is that if you get into the late game and things are in this sort of situation, it's going to be really hard to actually deal with it. Also, I mean, you stop and think about the rest of Parivision's draft. I'm sorry, I'm not the biggest fan of Pocket in this current meta. It just, you know, we've barely talked about Wolfie this game. There's generally a reason for that. The back end of the Parivision draft going for the Lash Pocket, I don't know. I mean, it kind of overly skewed them into an early to mid game comp, and now that you're in the late game, it's like, what, you have 51k Geist, Abrams that's still like actually quite competitive on the same of it, a Yamato and a Calico, like, unless VP completely beefs, there's very little winnable options here for Parivision, and it's kind of like the scenario that we've seen quite a bit on this patch already, where even if you get the ideal engage for Parivision, where you get like a lasso into a combo and you cleanly kill one person, the rest of VP can probably win 5-on-6, and that's just the reality of the team compositions you have right now.
Damn. Well, here we go. Next turn, Dan. Going to be looked to secure it out of Litz, but he gets blown up before he has a chance. Combo's still available, but he's going to have to wait 70 seconds to actually use it. As Virtus.pro are going to look for the final nail in the coffin to take Parivision down. Once again, Debuff through space and time. Another round in a row, able to push onto Saf to take him down. Wolfie trying to run back to bases together now on 37,000 souls, completely warp stones, and he tries to run away, but you can't escape Debuff, you can't escape the Yamato, and you're not going to escape Virtus.pro. Oh my god.
Is this Attack on Titan? What is happening? Oh my god. Oh, hello. Okay, well, we've been lassoed. Is that enough to take down? Okay, well, you got Mirage on you too. You're not living. Okay, there we go. Finally, the Yamato has been defeated. Well, Parivision only have 2 players left though, and given the fact that Patron is now taking quite the beating, it might, I mean, with the respawn times being so long, VP might decide to stick around here and just end the game. They are certainly in the position to do so, and I mean, they got a lot of damage, so they can just melt the weakened Patron real fast. So they're gonna be looking to go into the pit here.
Sap up in 3 though. A big death slam could be exactly what they need. Parivision need to be careful to not lose out on too many players as Wolfie gets sniped down and eliminated by Michaelis. Once again, there's the death slam into the spawn. Only gonna catch onto 1 though as he gets interrupted at the end of this and gets completely blown back up. And Virtus.pro, it took them almost 42 minutes of time, but they have once again defended their title, albeit with no prize earnings on top of that, up against Parivision for a 4th week in a row, securing their chance once again against 1 win in our money match here.
Wow, that was interesting. I mean, it was interesting to see the longevity that we had out of the Parivision comp, given all of the issues that we highlighted and some of the struggles I think that we saw. They made the game very competitive, and I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means that VP didn't play maybe as well as you would have expected. I don't know if it means that Parivision played better than you would expect, or what exactly that's down to. But regardless, Parivision did a great job in staying competitive there. And what most impressed me, Jason, I have to say, is how when they were in bad positions in the middle to late game, they managed to create a situation where they lost well, as we like to say, where they only gave up 10k souls when they lost the rejuve. They went for the right fights, they played the macro well to really minimize those advantages, but eventually they just couldn't claw back, and it just became too much. But I respect
Fall
that.
back. I see what you did there. Just really bringing out that hatred in my eyes once again when it comes to cats. But you know who doesn't hate cats? I think it's ZP who's going to be joining us once again here on the desk to break down that last game. I would say, I mean, Parivision, they definitely are starting to look much better in the early game, much better in the mid game. But as you did point out, their comp did have no end game to it, as Virtus.pro having the stronger late game heroes.
How smooth. How smooth.
Yeah, I mean, straight up, they missed their window, as I said, towards the end of the game. And look, I think part of it, too, is that I don't think they had the best backup towards the end. Is that I think the first half of the draft, really strong, really standard from what we've seen on this patch here so far, where you open up, you go with Mo, Holiday, and look, they got a lot of traction there at points. I think they had some fights where maybe they pushed a little bit too deep, right? Where you have the Mirage split pushing onto the Walker that you get, but in response, you end up feeding like 3 to 4 kills to DMOV on the back end and give DMOV suddenly a ramp to just start taking over the game as Yamato. But also you take a look at the general heroes that are picked. You had so much good frontline on VP that for Parivision, if you did not get about 20 to 30K ahead, the result that we saw was going to be inevitable.
Well, you know what? Speaking of inevitability, it's our player of the match presented by Intel. Who's it going to be, ZP? Who did you choose?
You know, it's a tough choice because it was kind of a team effort, but you look at the end, it's got to be DMOV, especially just defying reality at the very end, just being proof as to why Yamato has gone up so much in just 1 week on the tier listing in a E-shiftless less world. And at the end of it, it just comes down to the fact that for VP, they were able to sustain these fights to a crazy degree. And arguably you could have given this to Zergy too, where Zergy was, you know, eating a lot of cooldowns prior to the DMOV even getting into some of these big fights, paving the way for DMOV to clean up, but you still got to execute in on it. And we go to the highlights here. I gotta tell you, it's mostly a Yamato highlight reel for the last half of the game as DMOV landing grapples left, right, and center, good power slashes, even better game sense on top of it. And you know, you hit a point too where you kind of mentioned at one point, hey, Litz was far behind, is that there's a point where Litz couldn't even keep a combo going, whether it be on DMOV or otherwise, without dying mid-combo. And the chase down here was just relentless, where once Parivision, you know, you had their lasso and combo on cooldown, there was nothing really left to stop DMOV from exerting his will in the game.
Well, Dan, let's take a look at our match stats here. We can see Zergy just getting his farm on in typical Zergy fashion, 54,000 souls. And to be fair, though, he was extremely hard to kill in the end of this game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Zergy did a great job. I mean, also the damage output in the fight is like the tracking aim is still pretty legendary on that trackball. You know, with all of that damage getting connected with the Geist revolver. So really solid fights from Zergy. I loved just anytime we were on Zergy's POV, we saw that 1v2 like in the Vale on the right side of the map, or just chasing kills down. Always looks very efficient and strong in that role on Geist, which is really cool because you've got multiple like really good Geist players. In DMOV obviously has a really nasty Geist as well. So, and I think Listic has played it too, right? So with that said, I'm like, the thing that I hate about this game is I feel like Wolfie, if the comp was a bit different, maybe we would have seen a lot more impact from Wolfie, because Wolfie did a great job keeping up in terms of the soul count. And I feel like Pocket will be a slower starter, but I don't know that Socket's going to be like terrible in the mid to late game. The Affliction is still something that really was very powerful, especially against the type of comp that VP has. So I don't know if where I am on the Pocket right after this game.
Yeah, and I think we're also still a little bit unsure. I think obviously Ethereal Shift does help quite a bit when it comes to survivability, which is weird to say when you're playing Pocket and you already have insane survivability. But ZP, one thing I think that Parivision is lacking is something you saw them do not too long ago, bringing in Wolfie into the team. They needed another playmaker, not necessarily in terms of like playing Holiday or Mo, but someone who can really help carry a team. But I feel like we haven't seen Wolfie really be that just yet for Parivision. And at the same note, Together, who, when I thought of Yamato, I thought of Together hand in hand. He's not been gifted the hero that he used to carry the likes of Parivision on in the past.
I mean, also, these things are true, but also you look at the general composition, they kind of picked a comp that was in the realm where they weren't really going to get a whole lot of late game carry power to begin with. And, I just kind of want to piggyback on what Dan was saying in regards to the pocket and, maybe pocket wasn't that bad. I agree. Like, once you get out of the lane phase, you were relying on pocket more for, affliction and setting up fights in that matter. But with the team comp that Parivision went for, there wasn't really a front line to play around in the same way. It was kind of having to, really dart around, pick and choose your maneuvers. Meanwhile, you think about difficulty and execution between the two team comps. VP eventually hit a point in the game where their difficulty and execution was running at Parivision, where Parivision is just like, okay, now we have to like try and make sure we land a good affliction, and also Saf may be able to land a good death slam on top of, do we get high value off our lasso and combo? Like, you have the equations all laid out for Parivision on how they have to win a team fight into the late game, and VP's just like, hey, we scale well. Also, one thing I want to note here on the Lash for those wondering is like, well, maybe you're seeing Lash get played more by some teams because of Scrimbucks. I asked Lightbringer off the cuff, is like, so what do you think of Lash? And his response is like, I don't know. I can't understand it. Lash has been, even in scrims, Lash has been losing everything. So, remains to be seen.
Well, unfortunately for Parivision. Oh, go ahead, Dan.
Oh, I was going to say one extra point I think the ZP also made there is that just if you think about it, like the dynamics with the heroes like Lash, like Pocket, you're thinking, oh, how do I orient I need to come in with an ult at the right positioning at the right timing. And so and if you have multiple heroes like that on your team, that's difficult. It makes it even more difficult to find that timing.
Well, speaking of timings, we don't have much time left here in this challenger match over in EU. We still have, of course, our money match to come up between OneWin, the defending champions for multiple weeks, and the killers of Virtus.pro here, as they get their rematch once again. That's gonna be a best of 3 coming up after a short break. Here's the DFN number 23 presented by Intel, and we'll see you all shortly.